So welcome to the second of what we expect to be a few virtual exhibition artist talks and tours based on either the shuttered shows due to the COVID pandemic or shows that we had planned for this period that we were unable to open or are being postponed until we can safely return. Um, the hope is to have some additional virtual exhibitions for done in the summer and potentially the early part of the fall. So just a few housekeeping notes to start, everybody. You may notice the sound in the background of music, kind of like a childlike calliope type music. This is part of the exhibit's experience. Um, you may also notice a little bit of blurriness as we go through the space. Some of this is because we are on Zoom, and Zoom actually reduces the quality of what we see here. Also, if you the quality relies on each viewer's equipment, and since everybody's viewing equipment might vary, there could be some differences in quality that you might get on your end. But hopefully you can see the real experience today as best as possible. But if you want the full best experience, please do request a download from us. It is a 1 gigabyte file, and you can do that by emailing us at artgalleries@cpp.edu, and we can send you the gigabyte file. Just let us know if you would like the Windows version, the Mac version, or the virtual reality goggles version, which is the VR version. We will have a Q&A at the end of this talk. So if everyone could just please mute now, except for our main speaker, artist Gina M.
This show, Through the Toy Shop and Behind the Curtain, is all about layers. For me, it's an immersive portrait. Most times we pass right by something that doesn't sparkle or shine, like meeting someone for the first time. We make assumptions because it's quick and easy. We're too busy to find the time to listen, to understand, or care. But what you see on the surface is never what's beneath. There are always deeper layers to discover if you look. The space itself here is not just a gallery or a toy shop. It's a giant toy box that you can walk through and experience, with the faux painted padded walls gradually darkening the deeper you go. Everything is selected with layers in mind, from the show's title to the art titles to the circus-style font selected for the posters. It's part theater and illusion, social commentary and emotional exploration. It's funny and sad, beautiful and ugly, informative and punny. It's whimsy with a dark side. My goal is to grab your curiosity like a carnival barker and hold your attention like a highway car crash. So come on in. The first piece in the show I'd like to talk about is the Oracle of Misperception. She's an enchanted siren, a temptress, there to lure you in, while also foreshadowing the chaos inside. The Oracle of Misperception is reminiscent of the boardwalk fortune teller's booth Zoltar from the movie Big. It sparkles and shines, covered in crystal balls, magnifying glasses, and twinkle lights, all cleverly there to grab your attention, placate your fears, and draw you in. The base is a vintage church lectern. I admire the irony of this combination. I've always questioned religious dogma and the amount of vanity and egotism and narcissism it takes to continue. Which leads me to the box that holds the bling. Sitting in the lectern is a custom-built stage with the back covered in sheets of small mirrored squares, acting like a funhouse mirror, reflecting and hypnotizing the viewer with their own reflection. Let's swing around the back of the Oracle. It holds a coded message, scrawled in chalk, using a deceptive barista font that plays with scale and flourish. It reads, "Pay no attention to the chaos behind the curtain." There are bags of money and shredded flags spilling off the shelf in the back. Maybe it's a warning of what's to come. My definition of a successful piece is watching the reaction of the audience go from, "Oh, how cute and sweet," to, "Oh, wait, what? That's so sad." Be aware, the materials are not what they seem. The toy animals and well-worn, larger-than-life lace or terry cloth teddy bears with their stuffing pulled out are really made from ceramic and found objects. The colors and patterns are inviting and yummy. The eyes are pleading for you to come close, but looking closer you see the tire tracks or the holes exposing their vanity. I pressed real lace into the wet clay to make the textures on my bare skin, and used a real tire from my wagon for the tracks. I wanted a matte finish, so I used oxide washes on the bodies and a gloss glaze where I wanted a dramatic effect like the eyes. My bare skin can also be installed on the wall, like a taxidermy wall hanging. I have to admit, my husband Dan makes the pieces work structurally. I have an idea of how I want it to look and how it should be attached or displayed, but he's the one to make sure the engineering works, whether it hangs on the wall or from the ceiling. Making something look like something else is more my speed. My AA degree for interior design morphed into a career as a decorative artist. I painted murals, faux wood and marble, and distressed furniture for clients' homes and offices. So it wasn't a far leap to want to make clay look like something else. I didn't have the traditional training to know how to do it, but found a mentor at Pasadena City College, Keiko Fukuzawa, who showed me the work of different artists who created faux objects. I started small, then worked bigger rather quickly. I knew I wouldn't have access to these large kilns for long. She said if I completed my assignments and there was room, I was permitted to keep going bigger. Memory Mascot was completed in 2015 when my son was at college. He was always a performer, and all of his costumes still hung in the closet of his room. I poured all my hope and melancholy into this piece. The body's shape and yellow color is the same as his baby feety jammies, but the larger adult size measures how big he grew. The use of the real door and hardware helps push the illusion confusion of what is real or what is not. And the blue, well, that's just my favorite color. Also, the hollowness of the bear reflects how I felt at the time. Cutting across the toy shop is a large pedestal with a parade of roly-poly clowns titled Following the Leader Wherever He May Go. Again, made of ceramic, not the vintage plastic you'd expect. I started making this in the summer of 2016, when the US presidential election was still off in the distance and the outcome unknown. It was going to be a sarcastic piece made after a friend of mine teased me and said, "What if you got elected? That would be interesting." No, I just felt sick after hearing that. It was not funny. I watched many people in Congress jumping on board with this foolish, egotistic entertainer. So I made them clowns, following the biggest clown. Then I wondered who'd clean up the mess after the show ended. Afraid of what the world would look like, I made clown mutants, following a leader forced to wear a gas mask. Looking at it now, I see how prophetic it is, and even the use of masks with mutants is haunting. After the election, I put together this train. It's ceramic, but looks like it's made of old decomposing cardboard boxes left out in the rain. It's titled, I Thought I Could, I Thought I Could. It's after the last line from a book, The Little Engine That Could. As a kid, I remember thinking that line was a bit braggadocious and could even be said if the train didn't make it up the hill. Maybe I made this one for Hillary. I don't consider myself a political artist or activist, but so many things were happening after the election that I felt I needed to make a recording of it, to process it outside of myself so I could look back and remember what I was feeling at the time. Moving on to 2018 and well into the next administration, I was frustrated by all the lies or alternative facts coming out of the White House and even straight from the president's mouth. Things that just tweeted out, blurted out, things that were easily fact-checked by just watching tape from the day before. It was getting so Orwellian, I couldn't take it. Weren't we all brought up better than that? Why was this all of a sudden so okay? You didn't hear the majority of the press even calling them lies as such until one article in the New York Times. They did. After I read it, I knew what I had to do. I had found a table by the side of the road the day before and used an old Victorian chair as a throne/stage and remade a Pinocchio puppet as the liar-in-chief. There are spotlights and black curtains. He has banners spraying out of his nose, marking the day the New York Times printed all of his verified 4,229 lies by day 558. All these lies were by a sitting president of the United States. I call this piece World Stage. The world was watching as America was being seduced by a ringmaster of lies. If you open the drawer in the desk, you'll find reprinted and memorialized every lie from the article. In this piece, I wanted to show the performance of it all, the circus, the grift. I wanted to illustrate the pomp and circumstance hypnotizing this country by one man and his entertaining lies. The wall of smalls across the room has a few more political pieces. One is a bluebird and a life preserver, advocating my aversion for Twitter. It's called Garbage In and Garbage Out. There's a naked baby emperor meltdown. That's pretty self-explanatory. And one made from ceramic that fools your eye. It looks like cardboard boxes with writing on them suggesting rooms. This references the homeless housing issue that is growing in LA. If it made me feel something, I made it art about it. And there was just too much to keep in. But don't worry, the whole show is not all about current events. Some pieces romantically recreate my past. I built a reality for a contrast of feelings. Because again, I needed to see them in front of me. Moving to the center of the gallery, divided by the red curtain, is a folding screen, posing as an 8-foot puppet stage covered in red silk, crushed velvet, gold fringe, and blinking lights. A devilish gesture hushes the audience, or is he beckoning you close? I call this one, The Show Must Go On. You may be wondering, why all the theater imagery? Well, it's pulled from my past. I come from an unconventional creative family. In the 70s, our family and another owned a puppet theater in California where, on weekends, I watched my parents develop shows, build puppets, and host birthday parties for other children. The birthday crowd would enter the theater, past its tall black stage front, red curtains, and a large papier-mâché tree. All the presents would be left in the party room. And a golden-crowned birthday child would sit on their special chair to watch a show of hand puppets and marionettes. When that was over, we escorted them into the party room, where we served cupcakes, ice cream, and fruit punch. When the gifts were open and the food gone, everyone exited by the back of the stage, catching only a glimpse of the hidden magic. This was the standard puppet birthday show tradition of theaters like Bob Baker Marionettes in Los Angeles, Macabob's Toy Store in Pasadena, Genieland in Van Nuys, and ours, Puppetry Forest and Peppertree Fair in Anaheim. Behind my stage, I painted this oil painting of an audience of ugly clowns that slowly turn into hollow skeletons as they stack up into the balcony. These two things frightened me as a kid almost as much as being in front of an audience does today. My childhood was full of adult entertainers, creatives, and puppet people. Yet I was left alone much of the time with little to do but stay out of trouble and out of the way. So I made miniature friends from carpet fuzz, paper clips, and tape. I lived in my head, giving these objects a life of their own. The making of these friends back then kept my overactive, empathetic mind comforted, and it still does today. I can relive the abandonment feeling and the frustration of being invisible by giving voice to these feelings as I unravel how they made me who I am today. It's a vulnerable place to be for an artist, but I know these friends keep my secrets to share only with those who are brave enough to venture behind the curtain. This is the inspiration for all who live behind the stage. These are my Toy Box kids. I created them in 2018 after my solo show at 825 in Los Angeles closed. I had that empty feeling after a show of now what? I looked around the studio. I had no access to a kiln, but had all of this creative energy to burn. I collect a bunch of stuff. I spotted a collection of amusing objects that resonated from my past. They gravitated to one another in the studio like narrative magnets. I had a few decorative boxes like the ones used for doll clothes. I started putting objects together in them intuitively, like unraveling a subconscious story. Before I knew it, I had 9 babies in different stages of completion, their tummies filled with clues to who they were. As one would finish, I would start another. Most of them were born in just a few months. Sometimes their names came only after they were finished, like Listen, Little Lady. She's a woman made from a doll's head, a toy stove, mirrors, and baby shoes. She steadies herself on a stool and cocks her head while listening to The Trumpet of Mansplaining. Her title is a direct quote from a man giving me an on-site roofing estimate at my home. I rolled my eyes and probably walked him out. I don't have time for listen, little lady. Sometimes I find the pieces and the parts and I instantly know who they will become. Beauty and the Beast is what I saw when I pulled these 2 cast iron stove fronts from the scrap pile and attached them to the 2 discarded tables. I know this one comes from many summers binge-watching Disney with my son, wearing out those old VHS tapes. Yes, I am old. The next one I should call a collaborative project. Marriage is also a pop culture reference. It's a line from Princess Bride. This happens to be my husband Dan's favorite piece. We have known each other since I was 5 and he was 6. You know, it was our 2 families that owned the puppet theater. We spent many summers and puppet conventions and weekend birthday party marathons together. But by the time we were in high school, our families had drifted apart. Fast forward 13 years from that, and we were united. My husband and I were both married briefly to other people, and I mean briefly. But when we did finally get together, we did have some baggage. It may also be his favorite piece because he makes me those skulls, one at a time, with his leftover 2-part epoxy from work. He's a handyman. This other piece, Ass Clown, I made just because I found it funny. I had a lot of extra doll parts. I first heard Ass Clown right after the election and found it so amusing, I had to see it made, literally. Butts in the front and in the back, he's sitting on a pot with a tall dunce hat on. All my Toy Box kids like wearing hats. It was more spontaneously made than thoughtfully composed. I wonder who it reminds me of. The little girl in the red wagon, with her Rosie the Riveter arm pose and red polka dot scarf, is titled, I Got This. It was one of the first Toy Box kids I showed to the world. Interesting thing, I found that a man looking at this brings something different than a woman does. Both had different narratives about what was going on here. There's no wrong answer. If it makes you feel something, it's right. In closing, I'm inspired by events and emotions and how one influences the other. For me, I can clearly see how past events and emotions shaped who I am today, and how my visual language of old toys, dolls, puppets, and games relate to these feelings from my childhood. And having my show exhibited now in this virtual game, in a virtual world, is very appropriate. It's a conscious, continuous cycle, ever evolving. And this kind of looks like how it looks in my head when I think about what the gallery is when I'm not there. So it's really funny. Spend some time with these friends of mine, and you may leave feeling the melancholy of your inner child. Thank you to all the students and staff that made this possible.
You guys, in the spirit of things, you guys did a fantastic job, so thank you.
She's a good driver, Grace. Thank you.
Well, and thank goodness, and before we get to the Q&A, I didn't have a chance. I was kind of in the middle of it, but I wanted to acknowledge Grace for basically putting all of this together. So she was the right person at the right time to jump in and take over, because she created all of this virtual environment.
How could you forget where anything was?
and she knows all the titles of all the works, and knows exactly when you were referencing each one. She knew exactly which one each one was.
I think she knew where I was going with the next one too. She was ahead of me.
And well, I also texted her the map that you and I had created, the schematic we'd created of this tour, so she could follow along.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to acknowledge her for all of her hard work, and because doing this virtual exhibition takes about 100 or so, plus hundreds of hours. I shouldn't say 100, because it was probably 200 or 300 hours to build this virtual exhibition. It took 4 to 5 months, I think, Grace, to get this complete. And I want to also acknowledge the professor Kevin Moore, who got us started on this, and he teaches a class that he basically, because of the pandemic, started teaching a class about creating virtual spaces like this. And so a lot of our visual communication design majors, which Grace is one of, are learning this, and so this her working for me has been really great opportunity for her to learn how to do this. As well as Molly O'Connor. I assume Molly is here. Molly, could you wave or say hello? Unmute yourself. All my staff, please unmute yourselves really quick. I want to just acknowledge all of you. So is Molly there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there's Molly. Molly is an architecture major and also worked really hard on a virtual exhibition for the St. Brocksville show, which we did an event last month with the artist for that show. And she was very helpful as well, and as an architecture major. So Grace and Molly should really be acknowledged for all of their time and energy and skill and hard work.